What's up guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make every different style of techno. How to make hard melodic rave stuff, peak time 130 BPM, and then also a more ravey, sort of like Charlotte DeWitt, that style as well. To show you guys everything, I'm going to be using my new sample pack, Best Techno Kits Ever. We're going to be going through all 3 different kits in this pack. You can see with this, you get these project files as well as full loop kits with all the individual layers as loops. So it's this really sick sample pack where you can take all these different things and put them together and make different combinations. And it gives you a really strong starting point. I'll just play you. It has all these different styles, and you get all the individual layers for each one. Plus, you also get the project files, as well as these bonus kicks, bonus drum loops, and bonus synth loops. So all super solid stuff, everything you need to make some really solid techno tracks. I just wanted to create a really solid, accessible library of samples for you guys to use. I've spent a lot of time learning how to make this style, of all these different styles of techno. And I put it all together here so that you guys could quickly get started and start with some really solid stuff. You know, this is a really great way to just get a solid foundation and something that will sound really good that you can build on top of, so you're not stuck when you don't really understand how to do things at the start. Or maybe you just need some new inspiration and you already kind of know what you're doing. It's all really solid stuff. You can also reference this and make your own stuff. So link is at the top of the description. Again, you get all of this. It's a really great value. And again, it's meant to be accessible so you guys could go and get some stuff that's really high quality without having to completely break the bank. So, link is right at the top of the description. Again, you get all of this. Thanks again so much, guys. This really helps support me. And yeah, you're also supporting yourself, make your best music, because this is going to be some super solid samples that you can go and make really good stuff with. So, let's dive into the video. So, this is one of the packs. So we're going to be talking about how to make this first. So this is more like the ravey, melodic kind of stuff. What we've got here, I'll start with the kick. You know, usually just 2 layers. We got like a really punchy kick. It's got a lot of low end, but also it's got that like that mid-range to it. And then we got a nice rumble with some distortion. Hi-hats and percussion, pretty simple. But you'll notice with this style of techno, it's more about the groove. Like, it's not just that, like, you know, a lot of times techno is just... But you add in the snare. You add in that percussion, and it really creates more of a groove. And the idea is you're going to start with your kick, then you're going to get the hi-hat good, right? Just very simple layers. Then you can move to the snare, which this is made with like a 909 snare and a clap, and it's being distorted, multi-band. And then you bring in the percussion, right? These like rave loops. A lot of people want to start with these. If you start with these, you're going to get kind of lost. Again, you want to start with the foundational elements and then bring this over top of it. That's what's going to sound best. So we got all that together. We've also got a ride. You're going to tune down kind of darker. You know, the drums are going to be a little bit darker in the style. There's also this little transition here, where you just take your rave loops and reverse them. And then we've got this echo doing like a tape stop. And then I've also got it on the snare here. Now, for the synths, this style is going to be a little bit more melodic, honestly. Like with the other, like the slower stuff, it tends to either be very much like, you know, very monotone, like 1 note or 2 notes. Or if it's like that more melodic type of stuff we're going to cover in a second, it's still very simple. This is going to be like, actually very, you know, you have chord progressions and you have kind of more of a story that you're trying to tell with this. And it's this over top of that foundation. You want to start with the drums, but then this stuff is like sitting on top of it. Now, I usually start with the bass if you're trying to make like the whole thing like this, because that's really going to be what's going to set the mood. That's the chord progression essentially. You know, you're not really going to have chords usually. You could have a pad here and there, but really it's like implied chords where you just hear this bass, and then when you hear the progression, it shows you like it starts with D sharp, and it could be major or minor, but then you hear these, and it kind of sets the tone a little bit more. And then basically that's what's, because the lead on its own is good, but this is what gives it that feeling. And if you start with the bass, you won't have as much like you won't add as many notes in the lead, because it'll be simpler and you'll realize what's going to work over this. Really, you want to use the notes of this when you're writing this lead. So we've got this. This is a pretty simple minor scale as well, right? It's just root note, fourth, sixth, minor third. But it's really, it's not like you could do it on like that whole, oh, we're going to go to the minor third and it's going to make it feel like sad or resolving or whatever. Really, if you just use your ears, you can hear what sounds good. Like, just test out a lot of different things and see. Like, here, for example, I wanted to go like a note to kind of climb back down to the root. So I didn't go, oh yeah, the minor third sounds sad or whatever it is. You just listen to different notes that are in the scale and see what works. Sounds pretty simple as well. It's just like some fat saw waves, a little bit of distortion. For the lead, again, really simple. But what you want to do is create a little rhythm. This is a call and response where you have dun-dun-dun, like that, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. You know, that creates call and response, and that's essentially what's going to give this a lot of life. The notes are important, yes, but it's like, it's not how, what you say, it's how you say it. Because that rhythm is what's going to make it catchy. The notes, you basically just want simple notes with a really catchy rhythm. And again, it just sits really well over the bass because it's using most of the notes that are in that. There's a few notes here that I added, but it's all stuff that's going to sit really well with that. And this is also just some saw waves, a square wave as well, distortion. The pad is like sitting over top of the bass. It's just different notes in that scale that work. And that's how you make this hard melodic rave stuff. Now we got this more peak time project here. So we're at 131 BPM, a little bit slower groove. You know, with this style, the drums are a lot more straightforward, right? It's very simple. Just going over that kick versus the other stuff is a little bit more groovy. But with this style, the thing you really can't overlook is like the kick layers. If you listen, there's a lot going on here actually. And it's this sitting underneath all this other stuff that you're hearing that's making this work. Right? If we just have like the kick and the rumble. This also works, but these other layers add a lot more movement. So you really can't overlook that. Now, when you're making this, you want to start with just a simple kick. This is one of mine that I made actually. We're making the rumble with that same kick. It's just like an arpeggiator, 16th notes, a little bit of short reverb, amp, all that. I also have this kick on here. This is another kick sample. You can here just add some punch on there. So you want to start with these three in that order. Get that sounding good. And then we have this mid bass. So this is this wavetable thing I did where it's like 2 different layers. But if you look in here, you can see I have this velocity is mapped to a lot of different parameters. It's also in this. And then what we're doing is, you can see there's a bunch of velocity changes. So then all that stuff gets hit when you have that. And it creates this really expressive bass. Because if you just have just like all the same velocity, all no like movement in the synth, it's going to get a little bit flat, right? So this keeps it moving. And it allows you to make these really expressive patterns. And that's just got some echo. This limiter is a secret trick to kind of make it a little bit fatter. But then there's also this bounce bass, which is pretty much just like a donk, right? Like it's like the sine wave with the square wave. We got a filter with the shaper on there. A little bit of LFO on the pitch to make it kind of move. And then just some saturation and stuff. But if you listen to that bounce off of the mid bass, it kind of makes it bounce a bit more. And it's really subtle, but it's in there. Now you don't always want to have that. It depends on the track. This alone is usually good, but these days pretty much you have to have that mid bass, I think. And then that bounce bass on top of it sounds good. And if you look at the group, there's not really any like saturation or drum bus or anything, right? Like we want to keep it really clean. Just this low end cut to kind of cut out the stuff you wouldn't really hear. For the lead, honestly, kind of similar to what I was telling you with the other techno style. It's like, you know, you want to create these little call and response patterns. Like we have dun 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 dun. Right, like it creates a groove, and then the notes fit into that. And it's very simple in terms of the notes. Right, we're only using 4 notes. And we got 2 layers. Like a more straightforward saw wave. And then the wider, more unison one. And then the group, kind of same deal as the kick. Not like any drum bus or anything too much like crunching it or making it too compressed. You really just want to make solid synth layers. And you won't need all this. We do have a washout here. You know you want to do that subtle transition there. So then there's this ARP that comes in. So it's a simple pattern. It's just like, but then we've got, and that just kind of comes in to keep, you know, because if you just have that lead going and going without any automation or without something else coming in, it would get a little bit flat. So we got that. We've also got this as like a bass and the break. Pretty simple re-space. Then we had the bass stabs. Now these are really important with this style. Right, so this is something that really stands out about this style is like these bass stabs. It's not just that main lead and kick playing. It's that, but then this stuff coming in and out in the background. Right, so these are not that hard to make. You know, it's just like a re-space. Another re-space that kind of plays off of that one. We have this bass step. Just some wavetable stuff. This is pretty much just a Reese as well. Yeah, pretty simple stuff, but it fills out the background of the track. So these are really important. And again, nothing too much on the group to oversaturate it. Super punchy main hi-hat. This is like a stereo ride. This is one of my loops actually. A little bit of groove going on with the hi-hats as well as these little reverses. But again, not too much stuff because you don't want to overcrowd it with this style. Because as you can see, there's already so much going on with the bass stabs, the kick, the lead. So it's like, make that stuff solid and then keep the percussion simple, but very well made. Again, a lot of attention to detail in terms of making this hi-hat really punch, and it really needs to groove off of the kick. Like, you need to get that, like, right? But again, very simple stuff, just made very well. Other than that, it's really just the effects at the bottom, you know, to kind of carry things along, build snare, all that. And yeah, so now let's talk about some rave stuff. It's a little bit deeper, a little bit darker. You know, this is a lot less melodic. Obviously, those other styles are very popular right now, but this is really what techno, I think, is more about. It's like just a little bit dissonant, just very dark, using the notes kind of like percussion rather than like being super melodic. So this one, the kick is pretty simple. You know, you don't need all those extra layers. It's just a very punchy kick. And then a rumble. And no oversaturation, just turning it up right. You know, simple hi-hats. A little bit of like a clap to bounce off of that. We have this noise percussion. So that's the thing with this style too, is like, you know, a lot of sounds made with like modular synths, or even just percussion made with synthesis. So you can do that very easily in Ableton with Operator. It's just a bit of white noise and then a bandpass filter. And then the bandpass has an LFO on it. It's moving it around. We have the reed trigger turned off, so it's constantly moving. And then it's just playing 16 notes. It's very simple, but it creates this really powerful percussion. Now, the secret to this, the reason why it's so punchy, because it doesn't really sound like that just right out of the synth, is you're going to distort it. And drum bus helps too, because you can use the transient knob and kind of get a little bit more punch. And the echo helps as well too. Right? But then the other component of this is the synth. Now it's very simple. Other than those drums, it's only 3 other layers, right? But they're it's like I was saying with the other stuff. It's simple, but each layer is made very well. So the synth is made with Operator. FM synthesis, of course, is really good for these more like digital metallic sounds. So it's A sharp, and then it's literally just sliding up. See, it's just these 2 notes. And then we added A at the end as well, but it's just da-da-da-da-da. Like with these, honestly, if you just pick 2 notes like this that are right next to each other, rather than adding so many extra notes, it's going to make it just very simple and effective. And it's easier, it's more catchy too, because it's just simply like less information fired at your brain. It's less notes. But I went for that A at the end because it's super dissonant. And then for the sound, it's made with Operator, like I said. So you're just really using sine waves and detuning it a little bit, pitching them up, and creating that kind of like, you know, metallic evil sound. If we turn off the filter, you can see it's a little bit cleaner. It's not quite so like what you want, I think. The filter is good because you can get a little bit more punch out of it with the envelope, but also the shaper. It really gives it that more like punchy metallic sound. We've got an LFO on the filter as well. With this, since it's so simple in the style, you want to give it a lot of movement. Like your sounds, anytime you can put an LFO on the filter or something like that, because that's really what's going to keep it exciting, because it is so simple, and there's really not even that many effects. Like you don't have all the sweeps and stuff, so that's what's going to keep it moving. And then just a bit of chorus, EQ, echo, drum bus. You can see this really helps too if we turn this off. Transient knob, again, it'll really make these sound punchy, and it's not something you would want to do like when you're mastering a track or when you're trying to like get your kick sounding really punchy, because it will mess those things up. But with something like this, for sound design, that's where it's really good. So then we have this little 303 that pops in at the end. This is just made with analog. It's just one saw wave. You know, if you're trying to recreate the 303, like, there's only one oscillator in the 303, so you don't need a second one or even noise. You just use like one saw wave, bandpass filter. It's got an envelope, and then this also has movement because it's got this LFO, so it's constantly changing. You never hear exactly the same thing twice. We just have some overdrive, a bit of echo to give it some stereo width, drum bus, and then the last thing is the vocal. And it's very simple. It's just this one little vocal sample with a bit of echo. But the idea is that it's kind of playing off of what the synth is doing. Right, it's adding a lot of groove there. You can hear that. And that's really the goal here. If you're going to have a few different elements, you want them to really talk to each other. Like, really just, like, not having too much in the track, but everything that's there is really working together to create the groove. And that's what this does. So the way you would do this is, like, I started with the synth, but then I added this after that. And rather than adding, like, oh, this is going to be a new part and it's going to play its own thing that's elaborate or complex, I'm just going to listen to the other synth and just put notes in where I feel it needs it. And that's how I came up with it. And it's going to make the whole thing a lot more cohesive. And this way, even when you're in the part of the track where you're going to turn that synth off, right, like you just heard, you still have that same groove going because this is all based on one groove. Rather than if you took the vocal and you tried to make this whole other extra thing that would just overflow the track. So yeah, guys, that's going to be it for this one. I wanted to show you how to make 3 different styles of techno. You know, these are all the different ones that have been the most popular on this channel, so I wanted to just give you a definitive guide to how to do it. Thanks so much for all the support. If you like this video, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. You can check out my custom tutorials and ghost production and track finishing right at the top of the description. And also at the top of the description, you can get the best techno kits ever. So the link is right at the top of the description. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, guys. Again, it's these 3 kits. You get the project files plus all the individual loops. Again, super solid stuff. I'll play it for you one more time here. Everything you need plus the bonus kicks, bonus drums, and synth loops. Everything you need to make a really solid techno track. Once again, this is a really great way to support yourself and make sure that you're making your best stuff because it's going to give you a really solid foundation to build on. I've put a ton of time into learning how to make these styles of techno, and now you guys can benefit from all that time I put in by getting these solid samples to build your tracks on. So, thank you so much for all the support, guys. This really helps support me. I don't make a whole lot off of YouTube, but with these packs and different things like this, I'm able to keep going and keep bringing you guys new videos like this all the time that aren't on YouTube. Plus, it's going to support yourself making your best music. It's super accessible at only $10. You definitely don't want to miss out while it's still available. So, thank you so much for all the support, guys. Link at the top of the description, and I will see you guys in another video.